I
Well,
have a feeling it's going to be one of those conversations.
right on.
Can't wait.
Um, so my thought, unless anyone else has something they want to start with, was to start the conversation with experiences in our meditations, what we feel, what we're feeling, we connect to, and maybe to help us all understand better what we're feeling.
Hmm.
Does that sound okay to start there?
I'll start anywhere you like. It sounds like as
Okay.
good a place as any.
Terry, are you meditating like often?
Me?
I know you do in the water.
Yeah, so I am regularly irregular.
It's good to be consistent.
Yes, yes.
Inconsistently consistent. That's a good thing. Um, Scott, do you want to start with like
Sure.
when we're going up? And this will help me too, right? With helping to guide everyone in different ways.
Certainly. I will also actually start with just a bit of background and mention that, I went through a long period of time without meditating. And Terry knows that, we were at Lake Shrine and, pretty really into the practice of meditation. And I
This
felt it. And
was
I had,
decades ago, Jane, that they did this. I,
yes.
I was just a teenager.
Yeah. And so, and I meditated for decades. Like there was, I was pretty devout. Wasn't every day, but it was pretty with regularity and consistency and in whatever form I could. And then I really noticed when I didn't. Like I stopped for a period of years that only until we started this and getting back into meditation that I really began the daily practice, which is what I was doing long ago. So, now I do everything I can not to miss a day where I'll have a practice if I wake up really early, like usually I'm up at 5:30 in the morning, and before I do anything, I'll come down and do a meditation, even on days that we have our meditations. So I'll do two meditations in that situation. And the difference has been tremendous in my outlook, my attitude, just in the way things are flowing. And then so here's where I'll answer your question is I'm noticing a big difference between when I'm just getting up in the morning and meditating on my own and when I'm going through a guided meditation on the calls with you, because I think the feeling that there's more than myself, right? We're all on the call, and I'm by listening, I'm allowing rather than thinking, right? Not,
Just flow.
yeah, I'm allowing the flow. So the visualization is much greater. I find myself reaching heights, levels, frequencies, probably all of the above.
Can
That
we get into the details of that?
sure.
What I'm trying, I want to be able to talk about, because when you're going up through consciousness, it can be really hard to pinpoint words to describe what you're feeling. So, and as that's what I want to talk about, as what is it that you see? What is it that you experience? Hi,
Hmm.
Erica. As you're going through these meditations, what,
So
okay, so as I first start to put the energy, right, and guide it through us, what
mhm.
is it that you experience, see, feel?
Okay. So
I
specifically, and hi, Erica and Lynn. I was tagged for the first question, so I'm just responding to Christie's
and that's,
question.
I'll just catch them up real quick. Lynn and I had a great conversation the other day. So Lynn, what we're talking about is I want to engage in the conversation of what you feel, what you experience when you're in the meditation, to like the in-depth feeling that you're going through. So that's where Scott's at right now.
So the first feeling, which is, I'm going to equate the visual first, because it really is, my concentration is on my comfort, on my posture, the breathing, and as I'm breathing in, and I'm visualizing as you're speaking, right? Almost like the vortex that is coming through me. And so I'm visualizing the energy, and sometimes it's color, sometimes it's not. And then the feeling,
different colors than what I'm saying?
Oftentimes, yeah.
Good. Okay, good. And that's what I want to be, share whatever colors you see. It's just the colors and the energy.
Sometimes I'll see what you're seeing, just if I don't have anything already in my concentration or my visual. If I have something in my visual, I'll continue with that. But then I'm really feeling kind of the breath and taking over into the sensation in my fingers and my toes. Right. So I do absolutely feel an energy that is emanating, I guess is the right word. And I think I've mentioned this to you, where it gets really powerful is I will purposely start with my core and work out so that I have this visual or vision of, white light and energy and surrounding.
What does that white light look like? Like the white light that surrounds you, what does that look like?
It's a glow, right? Okay. So
it's a big glow.
Yeah, it's kind of I think of a bubble, right? I think of like a happy bubble, but it's expanding into the entirety of my house, right? Where my family, and I even think of my kids sleeping and the pets and everything, right? And then it goes beyond the house, and then it goes into the community. And it was interesting because one time, and I have different, visualizations or sensations, but this one time I think I told you about, which was all of a sudden, it was just like this burst. And I went straight up where I could see the earth, right? And this white light, like emanating from somewhere in California, and I had to be from here, right? Because I'm in California. And then it would just,
Who knows?
Who knows?
Right? It's an infinite universe. It could have been anywhere.
That's right. And then so that was what, like, it was almost like just a giant glow that then surrounded the entire earth. Okay. And I went up, out into, and not in I won't say the universe. It was more like on the plane of what is darkness and what is the atmosphere. But so that I could clearly see the earth kind of like really glowing.
So when you're going through consciousness, what I'm grasping that you're describing is like kind of going into the vast universe, right? Kind of like the into the stars, how you visualize the night sky.
Yes.
Is that what I consider that is we're rising through consciousness. Right. And it's not obviously your physical body, it's your energetic body. And when I talk in the meditations about the lightness that we're rising through consciousness, it's the lightness of your energy where you are floating, but it's the energy. It's not your form. Is that right? You feel like, and it feels kind of to me like a daydream, where you're just allowing the thoughts to flow, and you literally feel your energy. I don't know how else to describe it, but it kind of feels like you're floating. Lynn's laughing, like floating and flying. Is that what you?
Yes, I mean there are times, but it's interesting because I'm not right, and more often than not, it's not a floating. It's like a.
Oh, you get shot up.
Yeah,
oh,
right.
Very cool.
It's like just this
Very
energy. That just like,
masculine.
yeah.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So that's a masculine energy, Lynn, because I've never.
No, I just mean as a guy, they're blasting off, you know. It's like a compliment.
Right.
It just sounds,
Right, because I'm like, no, I have like this gentle float. Unless I'm doing my clearings, then I just shoot them up. Oh, that's funny.
No, it's that's why it's like almost, I didn't even want to say the word, but it's like, think of like an atomic bomb. Like that was the kind of the energy, and it just like all went light and white, and then straight up I went.
nice.
Yeah.
I love that. And to know all of that is very real. All of that we are experiencing, that's what, when they say stepping into the divine matrix and going into higher consciousness, all of that is very real and what you're experiencing. So knowing you could be anywhere, you're anywhere you want to be when you do that. And the higher in consciousness, when I bring you up onto that plateau, that's the highest space that we're able to attain now to be able to create, right? And it's staying in that feeling. That's the feeling I'm trying to create, where it feels like a daydream and you feel kind of as you're just kind of floating in space, but recognizing it is very real. It's just a different frequency in the universe that allows you to instantly create, right? And the better you feel, the better you feel, the more you're rising into a pure positive space and frequency for creating. And that's what I like with our group, is we're able to create that collaboratively, which helps maintain that energy, right, of pure positive. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. So and I think it's important for us to understand what it is that we're to be able to talk about. I don't know if we'll ever really truly understand it, but to be able to talk about what we're experiencing and trying. Like when I'm guiding, sometimes it can be challenging to find the words to describe what it is that I'm experiencing. Right. And to know that's part of it, because it is a different frequency. We don't always necessarily have the words to describe it. Wow. And I guess to just allow yourself to flow with it. And for me, the first thing that I focused on being really real was when I close my eyes and I see little black specks behind my eyes, or red specks. Sometimes they change colors, just little dots. It hit me, that's energy. And so I would just focus on those little specks of what those are. And it would allow me to kind of immerse more and more into just energetic space and the specks. So does anyone else want to share what they experienced?
I had a revelation. Well, my mom told me about your guys' conversation a little bit, and like how we're simulation. And well, when I finished your meditation yesterday with Ryan, I said to him, I was like, Christie's creating her own simulation, and she's bringing us up to this frequency, like our own frequency, us together, like we're in the
your own simulation.
Yeah, the simulation that Christie's guiding us to. And because she's like, and that's what all meditations I guess are, but it was just like a cool way to spin the idea of the simulation of this world here and how similar it is to the world you're creating up there. So
oh, how neat. I like that interpretation a lot. To catch you up on Lynn and our conversation, and I know I've had this with several of you, just talking about the divine matrix. And when I heard, I think it was Greg Braden who was saying this, it's all just a simulation. It's all just a divine matrix. It's just a game that's a simulation, and energetically you can control all that's going on. And I'm like, well, that kind of makes sense and makes life so much easier. If I'm just at the helm of the the game control, right? And so when we rise up, that's where I see us stepping into that divine matrix. That's why I don't guide anyone to what their creation is, because it's your game. It's your simulation. It's your world. You can create whatever. And I think that just gives us a light space to be able to create without limits. We don't have to worry about whether it's real or how it's going to happen or who's going to help us. We just, and Terry, I essentially have like plants grow up and they sprout into opportunities, they sprout into ideas, and everyone's are whatever they want them to be, you know? So, no, I'm glad you saw that, Erica.
Yeah, super fun.
That is cool.
Good, good.
To me, I think, you know, when we were talking and when I think of it as a simulation, it kind of bored. It's like, really, like, I love the juiciness of matter, you know, in the senses and all of that, but it doesn't negate that. It just says how much more control we have of that.
Well, and I think that's what you're talking about, is the foundation of the simulation comes from our feelings. That's what creates everything. So it isn't like a cold machine, right? It's the foundation that creates everything, is how we feel. And being able to, when you're up in that higher space, you feel at a deeper level. You just feel things differently, and recognizing, you go with that, right? You go with that because that's what allows us to create on a higher level.
Yeah, I have to respond to, I love that statement, the juiciness of matter. I don't remember that one. I kind of, what triggered me when you said that was, that's where the statement, what matters, comes from, right? So when you think about, well, what matters? Well, it's usually that physical form that you equate, right? And so how do you get to that physical form, right? You, whether you know it or not, we manifest everything. Our thinking is what matters, because it turns it into matter.
Right.
No, that's true. And so many times we don't even recognize that we've manifested it, because it comes in time, and it comes in ways that are so subtle that we would have never created it that way. So to to be able to recognize all of these things that are coming to us, we did manifest it. We did create it. So it's slowing everything down to recognize it. What I haven't figured out is how others play a part in that, right? Because you have I have my happy bubble, and I know others have free will, right? I don't want to have control over other people. So figuring out how their experiences uplift and inspire and feel good to us, right? That's kind of what I'm working on now. And I think what within my world, what I've done is, with the happy bubbles, just throwing the energy out of how I want to feel and how I want to feel around people and experience, like my divorce is getting final. And all I can do is throw out there, I'm just going to be happy with the outcome, because I don't want to try and figure it out, right? I just want to be, or I just don't want to spend any more time on it. I don't want to think about it. So it's easier for me to go, I've defined it enough where I'm just going to be happy with the outcome. And the more you say it, you're like, okay, that makes it really easy to, I'll just, whatever the outcome is, I'm going to be so freaking happy.
Well, it kind of brings in that whole quantum physics where, when the objective perceiver determines what it looks like or whatever that whole theory is. So in your observing and predetermining to observe the outcome happily, you are affecting the outcome. So I guess we really are affecting free wills of the situations we're involved in by putting our observation appropriately.
Right. And in that way, because it's very important to me, because I can tap into other people's energy, and I don't ever want to cross that line. Right. I just don't. So I think that's a way of allowing people to have their free will, not interfering in their free will, but only allowing their energies that feel good to affect me. Right. And then you're not interfering with someone's free will.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting thing because as an empath, when you can feel someone's energy, if you don't have that limit, you often the line is skewed. That's the great learning.
Right.
Mm.
Right. No, and I know both of you won't mind. Terry and Lynn are both absolute empaths, and my Derek is too. So it's learning that line where you're not taking on energy that isn't ready for your help. Right? Because it's yeah, woo, let them go.
Yeah, it weighs you down.
Right.
But that's where happy bubble comes in very powerfully for an empath. I'm in charge of my happy bubble. I have a boundary of that.
Right. And you can still uplift and inspire. That was part of the other conversation. I hope you don't mind me sharing, Lynn.
No.
Okay. We talked about the difference between supporting people and uplifting and inspiring, because Lynn is a true giver and she loves to help and support people. But sometimes it's people who just aren't ready. And so understanding her thought process and her intentions have absolutely been in the right place, but those thoughts have been drawing people who just aren't ready. Right? So just shifting the thought a little bit will now draw the people who are ready, people who she can uplift and inspire, and in return they do the same to her. And it's recognizing we deserve that. It's okay for us to say, well, what's in it for me? And I do that, and I don't care if it's a smile in return. I want something that is uplifting and inspiring for me to be able to engage in something. And it feels really selfish to say, but it makes me a better person, and it makes me have more to offer for others.
Well, and you can just feel the energy of support. Think of support. I'm supporting you. I'm inspiring you. You can feel
Right.
the expansion of the energy of the word inspire, because inspiring is supporting, but just supporting is like, could be a ball and chain.
I visualized a crutch, right? So when you said that, and even your hand motion, you went down when you said support and up when you said inspire.
Isn't that interesting?
Because it's the energy, it just flows through you, just like your words, your hand movements. For me, that was like a big aha as someone who's a humanitarian and an empath to know, I go for the inspiring. I'm inspiring people. That's much more enthusiasm to me. It's much less heavy sounding. Whereas if I'm supporting other people, it could be like, oh.
Right, you don't know what you're drawing.
And we don't know what their ability, they don't, like you said, might not want to be supported. And then that's when we're messing with other energies and blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Right. And it's a push. And when you have to push, it's draining to both sides.
Great point.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. So does anyone else want to share what they experience when they go up into, I don't know what else to call it, but consciousness, the matrix,
The platform.
Well, yeah, well, that's where I literally see you guys like on a pedestal with like a whole bunch of beautiful high energies underneath you, just lifting you up, and then they put you up on like, it's like a open type of field that they lift you up like a growing flower out from the earth. And then they put you on this platform, or it's not a platform, it's like an open field.
Yeah.
And then I start seeing mountains pop up and trees and grass, and And it's just allowing myself to flow with it.
Yeah.
Right, to flow. And like with daydreams, when you're in a daydream and the thoughts feel really good, it's really easy for you to stay in the daydream. As soon as there's a thought that doesn't feel right, it pulls you back into reality. So what I've learned is you're not in the right, you're not, that thought isn't guiding you in a positive direction. So it's when you're in that space. That's why this is different than meditations, because we're creating, we're daydreaming. We're not necessarily Friday on the clearings and resistance. Then we stay in consciousness and just connect consciousness, and we're not creating.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question, but I want to make sure if Jean or Terry, if they want to share first, because I can hold my question.
Oh, go ahead.
As you know, I have totally different experience. So and I rarely miss the meditations, right?
Right.
So I've already meditated on my own, anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes, my whole morning ritual.
Right.
I don't feel anything. I just follow what you're saying and visualize it, but I don't feel anything.
Okay.
It just feels like I'm making it up in my head. And
right, which is good.
So, when I meditate, I don't feel like I'm going anywhere. I just feel like I'm going deep. That's what it feels like when I meditate myself. And when I'm done, I kind of have to half wake myself up. But it almost feels like I'm flunking the group meditation class, but
you're not. You're not.
I don't feel anything. I don't see anything. If I see colors, it's always purple. With my eyes closed, it's always some shade of purple or lilac or something like that. But I will visualize. You use ruby red a lot. I visualize that coming up through my body.
That's the strength of the earth that I feel.
I get it.
But Jane, I want you to realize you are feeling it. All of us feel and experience something very different. And whatever we experience,
I don't know that I feel it in my body. The literal word "feel." I don't know that I feel it. You're saying I do.
Well, I can't.
I'm not aware of that.
I mean, once I go, I don't feel anything in my body. And it feels like a daydream. So and how I started was you feel like you're making it up. You feel like you're placing the thought there, and you are, and that's okay, because we kind of have to, I don't want to use the word train our body, but recondition. How is that? Our experience. So no, you are doing it right. Everything you're doing is right to be able to feel the colors. If you're seeing a purple, seeing whatever color you're seeing energy. And to know that if you're feeling like relaxed after, you've connected in a beautiful way.
Well, let me clarify. I don't feel I'm doing anything wrong.
Okay, good.
Other than maybe blocking feeling. But, when I hear people feel like they're floating or shooting or whatever it is, I don't feel any of that. I just
it's not feeling. Okay. So, and that's where and Scott, help me. Okay. Cause I don't want to take over what you were saying, but it's not, when you're in consciousness, it's not necessarily the feeling, it's the knowing. And it's just allowing yourself to explore. So when I'm saying that I'm guiding you, I'm kind of just going and flowing with it, but I'm not necessarily feeling anything. I'm just allowing the thoughts to flow. So I'm assuming when Scott gets shot up, he's allowing the thoughts to flow that allow that vision or visual to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you don't actually feel like you're being shot up.
That's where I was going to go, where it's not, and I know we're using the word feeling.
Right. And the feeling comes in when we get onto the higher platform and we're creating. That's when the feeling comes in. And it's
hold on. I even see Jane shaking her head, which I'm in between going, yes, I know what Jane is saying, right? In regards to it's the verbal, like we know feeling as something physical, right? Mm-hmm. Taste, touch, sense, smell. And I often, I don't necessarily, I actually do feel sometimes tingling in my fingers, but am I really feeling it? It's so much of whatever the experience is. And I'm actually glad you mentioned that, Jane, before I asked my question, because it was interesting. It's almost the opposite of what I was about to ask, which first off, there is no wrong way, right? There's no wrong or right. And I was feeling, he's going to use that word,
right?
In that I want to get into these creative visualizations so that I can shape what's happening in my world, right? Whether it be the business or something I'm working on. And I find myself not being able to visualize or put myself in a situation that I feel I'm where I'm looking to go. In fact, I always find myself, not always, I'm gonna be careful, often find myself in the same place, which is this vision I have of the perfect view, looking out my backyard. I can visualize the pool. I can see the two sconces with fire coming out in the infinity pool, right? Like that's my place. It's my happy place. And I always end up there. Even if I'm trying to think about something around my business, I end up there.
So
and that was going to be right. And that was be kind of my question is how do you help shape the visualization? And it's interesting what Jane was referring to is you may not have any vision, or not you'll have a vision, but you don't have to visualize. Like
and that's okay.
Right.
You just visualize a beautiful space, and that's what you're doing, Scott. You are visualizing your future home, or maybe a past home. Right?
Maybe it was a past home, but
it's a home that you are going. What I'm feeling in the inside, I'm getting. You're creating the space that you are going to be in. Allow yourself to be in that space when you're creating, right? Allow yourself to sit out on that deck and draw up your business plan, right? Not literally draw it up, but allow yourself, maybe create a whiteboard and draw what you're going to do, what you're going to accomplish. Maybe allow the people to pop up in front of you, and you're hosting your business meeting at your home on this beautiful patio, because it's a comfortable space that you want to be in the universe.
And that's good. And that's actually where I'm having the same challenge, right, that Jane's having, but in a different way, is I try to go from that place, which I feel comfortable in, to shaping something else. And I'm challenged going, but I'll say one last thing to Jane's, when she said I'm not feeling, calmness is a feeling, right? So you're in this place of calmness where there is no maybe specific visualization, but that's a place of creation too.
Well, I can visualize what Christie says pretty easily, and if you say whatever you see, then I'll poke a picture in there, of like my dream place to go on a hike in the woods or something. It has a lot of green and like pine needles so it's really quiet, and there's a stream babbling right next to the trail, and I can see that really easily.
You're doing it.
That's doing it. Yeah,
but I don't feel it. By saying that it's not really physically feeling, that eradicates my concern.
Okay. So you are you are experiencing higher consciousness, right? You are experiencing the creation in higher consciousness. So let's remove the word feeling, because feeling is the next step where I don't even know how to begin. When I go really high, I can feel colors in my stomach. Like when I see a color, I can feel it connect. I don't even know how to describe it, but I feel things and objects.
It's a white heaven. That's how you describe it.
Yeah, drink more, Jane.
Oh, it's White Haven. Oh, I'm sorry. White Haven. Yeah, I thought it.
White Evan. What?
But I don't get to that space often. So we are definitely using the word feeling too loosely, or I am. So that's good to know. But what you're experiencing, Jane, is exactly where I'm guiding us to go, is to create that space where you feel really good, you feel really comfortable. That is your zen, that is your happy bubble. You don't have to leave that space, Scott. Don't leave that space to be able to create what else you want, right?
Mm.
I'm going to say,
I like that.
Huh?
I don't feel or see. For me, it's a knowing. So like, I can't even begin to describe it. Like I can do like you're doing I'll see whatever she tells me is where it's going on, so it's not really that I see in the way that other people see, or that I feel. I can say more like sense. I sense what's going on, but that's not a feeling. I know like things happen on Wednesday, especially I don't even know what was going on there, but I just let it be that, but that doesn't happen every time either.
Right.
So I think part of it that's why the simulation is so key, because part of it is that we are making a simulation of what that will be and what that feels like. And it's not like you just come up with a thought and it's in action and bloomed. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we go up, we're sensing, we're refining our subtle energy sensory. So it's different than a feeling. And I've heard people like, oh, a bird caught me and blah, blah, I'm like, no, it didn't happen to me. I've got a deep inside knowing, more like you.
And it comes from your stomach, huh? Because you went deep. It comes from your stomach, and it's recognizing it, because it's so subtle. It's so subtle when that happens. And I think too, what's important is when we go up, to not have any preconceived ideas where you're going, right? And just allow yourself to raise up into the plateau, and whatever slowly appears, it slowly appears. And if you're comfortable with the wooded area and the pine needles and all of that, then begin to visualize that or think about that. And I think it is what helps me is I wrote a list of things that I want to manifest. And so I begin thinking about it already completed when I'm there, right? When I'm there, I begin visualizing as though it's my life. And I start living in that experience. That's so, great. Yeah, having some, but I don't have an intention when I go up there. I don't. And I just allow them to guide me to what feels right to create. And that's where I always start with, I create flowers and trees, and because it feels good and it's pretty, and it, and if that's what I create, the whole focus, then I've just created a beautiful space. Right. but it usually seems to go off into something that is on my list that I want to manifest. So I think that's an important thing for all of us to have, is just, maybe 5 or 6 things that we're working on. And to
Maybe
have
they'll
some
float
sort of,
in. Yeah, maybe they'll float in and
yeah.
I think it's really different for everyone. And I think sometimes that's why it's hard to talk, because someone does this and it makes you think, oh, well, I'm not doing that.
Right.
I've been in a mystery school a long time, and it's important to go like everybody's are different. And since we really don't have words, but symbols of things here, that it's key that no one ever thinks like they're not doing it or it's done differently is right or wrong, or because you're settled in place. Like, do you know how many people would love to just feel rooted deep in themselves quietly?
Right.
Like, that's a huge creative space. But I don't see, mine goes all different ways, but it certainly isn't what I've heard from others either.
And when you talk to people, it's usually everyone's is a bit different. Mm-hmm. Right. And knowing wherever you're going, as long as it feels good, it's right.
And Barry, what have you got to say about all this?
Hi, Jane. Thanks for bringing me into the conversation. Well, getting into, so for me, it's somewhat different because I usually have an intention, and my meditations are more prayer-based. And so trying to connect to source and try to align with source. I typically have an intention. Lately I've had a friend that's had a tragedy, and there's a lot going on with him and his family. And so I am really in the space of sending him vibes of support, ideas, and my energy, creative energy, to kind of assist him to what I am feeling he's experiencing. And so my intention is really focused in that way, and focused on and I know what you're talking about, Scott, when you're talking about calmness, because that's almost like the feeling of, in the body, that's a confirmation that you have kind of let your sensory distractions dissipate. And it's more of like a feeling. It's not necessarily a neurological feeling. It's not a sensory feeling. It's kind of more of an internal feeling, that arrival of calmness, as differentiated by, the arrival of chi, which is more of a sensory feeling within your body, even though it is energy. But I mean, for me, I find that calmness when I find that connection and alignment to source. And I realized by listening to everybody, talking about meditations, of what your intention is, what your, and it's all different, right? However, you use meditation as a tool to manifest, to clear your mind, to find calmness or whatever. I just find myself doing it very focused with intention and prayer, and really kind of for specific things, right? I find myself praying for other people that need support, like for my brother, or for Danny, or for Scott's project, or for my buddy Eric, who, is kind of up and down. And so that's kind of when I sit, I have that feeling of intention that this is what I want to do. So it's not necessarily self-serving in a way that I want this for me, I want this, I want. It's for me, it's kind of a tool of giving and sending. And so that's kind of where I sit with it. So I would definitely benefit by these guided meditations, and they make you feel good and all that. But to me, it's the power of intention that really drives where I go with it.
No, and I love that, Terry, and I do that as well. And I consider them very different practices. And those to me are individual meditations, right? This, what I'm doing, and I do those every morning. These are guided visualizations, and I try really hard to not use the word meditation because it's very different. We're literally stepping into the divine matrix and creating. It's very different um, than setting the intentions and doing a meditation. They're two very different things, and I think they're both great ways to expand. Like Sam goes into consciousness and just kind of goes into oneness and has no intentions, no thoughts. That's beautiful as well. And then on Fridays, I do the clearing of resistance and blocks, which is it's just another beautiful gift that you can do in consciousness, right? And all of it is with good intentions. So I think it's fun to understand there's so many different things that you can do in that space. And as long as you're doing them with good intentions, for me, I think, being able to uplift and inspire, put myself in a position where I can create with good intentions for my highest purpose is beneficial to many, right? And there's nothing wrong with me feeling happy and good and creating things to better myself. Is kind of how I look at it. They're two different, or there's many different ways to be able to connect for many different purposes. And that's what I'm working on, being able to define that when I share what it is that I do. Because what you were talking about is what people think of in the lines of meditation. And it is beautiful and it is needed, and I think it is needed to be able to go into that space alone without hearing me in your voice, in your head, right? To get you there. So, does that make sense that they're—
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I was just relating what my experience is, and because you were asking, the query is like, what's your experience? And that was my experience. So absolutely, there's different things that, there's a lot of places you can go. I was just telling you that's typically where I go.
I love it.
It is a different experience. It's kind of interesting as you're explaining that, because like you went all, and I think Jane mentioned the same thing. When I meditate, when I first get up, even on the same days that we have these guided meditations, it's a very different experience. My experience is very different in the morning when I first get up. 10, 15 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes goes by and I don't even realize it, versus a guided meditation, which I intentionally, right, go places. Like I'm in the intention to create.
And I think that's part of the fun for me, is to help people understand you can travel. You can travel in there. You can go to different spaces and learn different things through consciousness. Tap into, different spaces. It's just making sure, for me, it's important to guide people. Just stay in pure positive. Just go straight up, pure positive. Don't go to the sides. Don't go down. But that to me, I feel, is a gift that I was given to be able to share with people. The gift to be able to travel. It's just daydreaming is really all it is just letting your mind wander. And the more you do that, the more the experience becomes real. I mean, you look at kids when they were young and, always being told to stop daydreaming. Look at, Joey or whoever, he's off in La La Land. He was, his body was here, but he was off somewhere. Right. And knowing that's kind of how you travel. I think people just really overcomplicate it, being able to go into consciousness.
Well, there's so many ways it's explained. Like in my thinking, Terry would be describing intercessory prayer. Like there's a million ways we could label and, put this, what we call intercessory prayer as a minister, and then meditation where people are going in. Like I'm in a school where the point is to get out of the body. So it's soul transcendence. So when I think of your plane, I'm going to the creation station of all knowledge.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, that was
I
good.
like Creation Station. Sounds like that bill on Capitol Hill.
Yeah. And it's a travel out, whereas other things like intercessory prayer is more in my heart when I'm, meditation, when I'm sitting and grounding and still, like there's so many levels of what we could do with this, but it is very different because we're in a group, what we call an egregore. It's an energy field we're all creating together. And when we do that, we make it exponentially far more powerful, like times 5, because we're all together, we're in a positive field, we are working for the highest good, and then we're just daydreaming what that will be. And there's like an interconnect between the download of what, because it's not just our mind saying what we want. Thoughts come in, ideas come in. That's where we're kind of being the dual vessel between the two. And since we're all doing it together, we're just supporting each other tremendously energetically.
There's a big amplifier in the creation station.
Yes.
What?
There's a big amplifier in the creation station.
No, I love that, Lynn. I didn't know the differences, and that makes perfect sense that that's what Terry was explaining, what he does. And that is such a beautiful thing. And it feels so good to be able to send those prayers out for other people and good wishes and good intentions. It does. It feels really good.
So no, I have to ask this question because now I'm after Lynn just shared that is, we do amplify, right? I mean, it is very different when you come together as a group and you acknowledge and that you're unified in this meditation. Where we can truly amplify it by having a purpose, having an intention. Maybe and this is something we could explore or play with. It's like, same thing going back to what Terry said, whether it's for yourself, whether it's for somebody else, whether it's for a higher, whatever that higher purpose is in the world, is if we all focused on a specific area to help either, like I said, either one another or a situation, like, could we play with that? Like, is that something we could? Yeah.
Because I think you just brought it in a whole other level, because that's what I've been wanting to do with corporate, to be, bring people with the same strategy together and the right intentions. And as you were talking, I was thinking of Terry, that he can go up into that space and create a harmonious utopia, that, a space where everyone just is happy, healthy, they have enough water and food, and just you can create that space up there. It doesn't have to be something for you. So then it ties into what you said, Scott, that we could absolutely do that. I personally wouldn't really want to be the only one creating what that space is, right? I would want it to be a collaborative, a group effort as to what we're creating. So if that's what we want to do, just kind of if we want to create like I'll just use the term harmonious utopia, just get a few different feelings from people, how they want to feel, what they want to experience there. And we can absolutely create that space.
Okay. I just kind of was triggered when that was brought up. It's like, well, yeah, we're all having our individual experiences together. What if we actually had a together experience together?
Well, the rule is where 2 or more are gathered. That's what it says. So that's the energetic law that you amplify, whether it's love, whether it's prayer, whether it's healing, whether it's nastiness, the group though is so key in anything, because when someone has 1,000 people praying for them and someone has 2, it does make a difference energetically. It's just what all those studies are on, that, why people do prayer days, and,
right.
Because that concentration can just like whip through physical time, healing, like it cuts it. You know, it's like, well, and if you think if we're all one, the bigger one section is the liver, and the liver's all detoxing the world, and it's this much percent of it, then we're powerfully tooling whatever part of this field we want, you know? So the gathering is key. The unison is key for power in any direction.
And I have one more question. Sorry, I'm going to take up the room on questions, but this is actually for Terry and Erica. You know, we all know you as the artist. So when you're painting, right? I mean, isn't that meditation? And where do you get the visual or the visualization? Did you visualize it before you started painting, or did you start painting and then the visualization came?
I'll let Erica go with that first.
Okay. Well, recently for this show that I've been creating, I get like right before bed, actually, I get like symbols. And so I've been dealing with like lines with oil pastel and like how to create things. And the first idea come because it's abstract. So first I'm inspired by winter. So I'm doing like a winter abstract, like with colors and shapes, with this, like all the different mixed media. So for me, but it's always different. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm going to paint. I just start painting and I let the colors jump out, and I'm painting with my left hand right now to like loosen my control, with all of it. So it comes in different ways for me.
Thank you.
And for me, I would love to tap into that creative flow that Erica just spoke about. I'm a little bit more structured. I suppose I need to put in my 10,000 hours before I can get to the place where she's talking about, because I use reference material, and normally it's within the idea of painting water somewhere. And so when I'm in painting water, I'm using color and tone to try and create movement within the water. And that's kind of like where the meditation exists for me. I'm not in the space of like, here, let me create these objects that are unknown and they just kind of find a place. I find little shapes that just kind of happen, with color and tone. And then that's where kind of my meditation and my creative space kind of falls into. So it's kind of a creative space within structure, I guess you would call it.
Well, I think it's like meditation. There's no one right way.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
50,000 hours or whatever you said, just your way is different. And remember, Christy, when you said you felt colors in your stomach?
Yeah.
I feel hunger in my stomach now, so I'm going to sign off.
Oh, that's funny. That's good. All
That's
right.
what that rumbling was.
Good night.
Yeah. Wait, I want to say one more thing. I think it's great that we share this, because for me, what happens is when I think of Terry and Scott and all of our ways that we do this, it expands my experience the next time I go in, because I actually have an opener book than I started with. Rather it just be a nice, I'm like, oh, well, you did this, or Scott skyrocketed. So the next time I'm open, that perhaps.
You could.
Yeah.
So I like to
Well,
hear everyone's experience, because it supports me to expand, because I might be limited in how I've called this.
Yeah, if you're okay, and we'll let Jane go eat, but I have one more question before you guys jump, if you're willing to stay on for a couple more minutes.
Well, let's hear the question and then I'll decide.
Okay. So yeah, I'm bringing the two conversations together from structure, and I'll call it abstract. I don't know if that's the right word. Do either of you think about or have used the Fibonacci, the 1 to 1.6 in your structure of what you're painting and how you're painting it? And do you know what I mean?
I know what Fibonacci is. Yes, and actually it's funny you should mention that, because I've been thinking about something, because Fibonacci is really key with the development of shells and shellfish, right? If you see certain shells, there's a Fibonacci correspondence in terms of development of a certain shells. So there is, and I've been interested in the intersection of science as it relates to nature. So yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. I haven't done it, but it's kind of been in my head to.
Well, we might have to make it a topic for another day, Christy, because what they just tapped in, or what the reason I asked the question is it's the energetic, right? The meditation side of visual creation, and the structure of how to materialize it that is of the best geometry, right? That it appeals to people, right? There's a reason that a photograph looks good to some and another photograph doesn't. And if it meets the Fibonacci code, then structurally in the image, it works.
Interesting.
It's
right.
fun.
And it's sacred geometry. It's basic sacred geometry, and it's 1 to 1.6.
What do you mean 1 to 1.6? What's 1 to 1.6?
Everything.
It's a mathematical equation. Just Google Fibonacci.
The entire universe is, in plants and animals, your own body is 1 to 1.6. So your arm from here to here is 1, and from here to here is 1.6. You can do it in your fingers. It's from your heart to your brain. It's from, your entire structure. If you look at a flower, and I won't go too deep into it, like Terry said, look it up.
I'm looking at my fingers.
I'll look it up.
It's what the Da Vinci Code is. So look up the Da Vinci Code, right? Coupled with Fibonacci. And the Da Vinci Code, I think, explains it sometimes even better around, you can even type in Da Vinci Code in a photograph, and you'll see, it'll give you examples of why photographs look good to you and why others don't.
Boy, these Italians, they figured some stuff out. Good night, everybody.
Good
Good night. Good night.
All right.
Scott, this just gave me a great idea of like why I'm struggling with this painting. It's just not working for me. There's structure. And I was like, you just gave me a great idea. I mean, there's like something I need to look at it through a different lens now.
Oh, I love it.
I love it because Erica was talking. So this shows you the power of what we're doing. We're tapping into a field. Erica just brought that Fibonacci code and growing up in a ecosystem, one of this permaculture.
I went snowboarding, and I was noticing the fractals of the forest and like just getting lost in the imagery. And then our permaculture class actually grows gardens in a Fibonacci circle like this, so because it supports the growing of the plant a lot more. And now you guys are talking about it. So
I love it.
Yeah.
So I just got goosebumps because yes, and now I know we're past our time. But I get to teach my kids on Thursday. We homeschool, so Thursday's my day, and the kids either love it or hate it. So there's no in between, because I always like go. And today was about photosynthesis and plants and growing. And it all came back to, essentially how energetically it's all connected, right? And so when you look at the Da Vinci, right, and the Fibonacci numerology tied together, it shows how it's infinitum and it's all connected.
So
right. So there is no what's the word? There's no accident.
There's the coil of the divine matrix we're going in and out of.
That's right. That's right.
The spiral.
All right.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Fun.
Thank you guys.
yes.
Have a great night. Talk to you later.
Bye.
All right.
Bye
Have
now.
a good night.
All right.
Bye.
Good night, you guys.